Welcome to NeedlessSpace, the channel with fast, efficient guides that get straight to the point. In this video, I'm going to be going over 10 crucial tips and tricks for Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance. Some of these tips are essential for both experienced players and players who are just starting out, so I highly recommend sitting through the full list in case there's something that you still haven't heard. And feel free to let me know down below in the comments anything that you think I should have had on this list that isn't there. So jumping right into it, starting with tip number 1, don't skip on upgrading consumables. So in the main camp, when you head to the shop, you notice you can upgrade your gear, change the skin or color of your gear, and it's easy to overlook the consumable tab as it might not seem very useful. But since we go into each dungeon with only 3 health potions, sometimes 4 depending on your perks, you definitely want them to be the most efficient as possible. So I highly recommend going here and upgrading at least your health potions. As we all know, some encounters and boss fights can be very difficult, draining your health pretty fast, so you want each health potion that you use to be more efficient in keeping you alive. Tip number 2 is going to be specifically for combat, and that's don't overcommit to your combos. It's really easy in this game to get locked into an animation, and sometimes when you see the boss about to make a move, it's already too late because your character is animating into the next moveset. It's very easy to get one wrong hit, get knocked down onto the ground, and have the enemies swarm you, and before you know it, you're down and restarting from the last checkpoint. I'm not saying don't utilize your combos, just don't overcommit and get locked into the animations. Tip number 3 is to keep in mind that you only get the loot that you acquire after you beat the level that you're currently on. So as you're exploring, getting chests, and beating encounters, it does say that you acquire uncommon or rare various loot. They are only actually given to your character after you beat the level at the camp chest. So if you're stuck on that final encounter of a dungeon and you really want to give up, keep in mind you will lose every piece of gear that you've acquired since. So just push through that final encounter so all your hard work doesn't go to waste. Tip number 4 is to explore the levels when you're going through them for the first time. So if you notice, there's some optional objectives through most levels and quite a bit of hidden gear down secret paths and tunnels. So you definitely want to keep your eyes peeled if you want to utilize each level to get the most loot and the most experience and gold. Doing things like looking behind you after you jump across a gap, smashing breakable objects in terrain, and keeping your eye out in the distance in case you see a hidden path down the road. Tip number 5 is to take the more rare loot option when prompted with a new rest point. So during certain encounters after you finish, you'll get prompted to either rest up, gain health, stamina, and consumables back, and it respawns every enemy again in the area. Or instead, you can choose to ignore it or select the rare loot option, and it'll increase the rarity of your loot from here on out through this level. So it is very tempting to take the safe option to gain a new checkpoint, but keep in mind, if you do end up dying and you get sent back to the beginning, all your progression in the level is still current. You don't lose any of the progression during that level. The enemies will just respawn, and you actually don't even have to fight the enemies when you go back through each area. So when you die, you can just run all the way back up to the section you are currently at and continue on. So in my opinion, it is always a better option to take the more rare loot. Tip number 6 is to lock on your targets while using the archer. So not only does this help you hit your target, but it actually bypasses the range restrictions. And I'm going to be honest, it took me way too long to realize this one. So when you fire normally with your arrows, they will stop at a certain point, but when you lock on your enemies, you can shoot your arrows even farther, allowing you to put more range between yourself and the enemy, which in my opinion is the best option to do with the archer. So lock on your targets to get rid of that range restriction. It also helps with some of the strange angles that the terrain will give you. Tip number 7 is for players that really want to grind out levels and experience, and that's to pick a level that allows you to run past everything and kill the final boss. So the rewards from the level itself are usually better than the ones you will find during the level. So if you really aren't into exploring and getting all the rewards and completing all the objectives, just find a level to run through, kill the final boss, rinse and repeat, and this will get you to a higher level in no time. Tip number 8 is to keep in mind that the gear that drops from chests will have to be picked up by each character. So if you're playing a multiplayer match, you can explore around, and any gold or crystals or most other items that players find will be given to all players in the party. But when you open a chest and it gives you a piece of gear like a ring or helmet or weapon, each player will have to come over and pick up their instance of that loot. You will not automatically be given any equipable gear. So tip number 9 is to keep an eye on set bonuses. So you might come across a piece of gear that isn't that great on its own, but if you look down below on the stat page, you'll see that if you have 3 or more pieces of that same type of gear, you get a set bonus, and these are usually pretty powerful, especially if you get up into the 5-piece or the full set. So you definitely don't want to be just selling random pieces of gear that you don't want, because you might need to utilize some of those set bonuses for certain encounters. An easy way to tell if pieces of gear are in the same set is they will usually share the same name, and the game is pretty good at letting you know if you have these set combos active by highlighting that category yellow. Tip number 10 is to utilize purchasing new moves. So if you haven't noticed yet, you can go to the moves tab on your character screen and you actually can unlock new moves and combos with gold. And in my opinion, this is probably one of the most useful things gold is actually used for in the game. And some of these new moves can be quite useful for taking down enemies or even specific boss encounters. So after each activity, you definitely want to swing by this page and take a look at the moves and unlock any that you need. Alright guys, well I hope you found this list useful. If you did, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Other than that, I will catch you guys in the next one, and as always, good luck and have fun.